Sometimes at the end of the season, our vegetable gardens can start to look a little worn out. But if you still have energy and you're wanting to get a little more produce out of your garden, or perhaps this year just got away from you with all that's going on and you never really got to get after your garden like you were hoping to, we have an idea in order to grow a little bit of produce at the end of the season. We're going to talk about how to do a garden in a box. Now this is a really great option if you didn't have any garden space that's really low maintenance and you just need a few things. We're not talking about building a garden and we don't need any major equipment or anything. Basically 1 bag of potting soil, some sort of storage container that fits that bag of potting soil, a box knife, and whatever small seeds like lettuce, cool season crops, lettuce, radishes work really well for this particular project. So we're going to make a garden in a box. Now the idea to do this is probably the larger size that you'll want to do. You wouldn't want to do much larger than this because it can get a little bit cumbersome to kind of manipulate and deal with. We're going to turn the lid upside down. So this is going to work kind of as a water tray so that we don't have to worry about it flooding if you have it in your garage or something like that. Now, we're going to take our potting soil. You want to make sure you're getting potting soil, not topsoil or anything like that. Potting soil will allow for good drainage. Now, this is a plastic container, so we want to make sure that we're going to punch some holes in this. And we'll just do that by making a couple of X's. You don't want to do anything too large, because we don't want to lose our potting soil. We just want to allow for some drainage. Now, what I'm doing, this is going to be our bottom here. So we're going to flip this potting soil over on top of our lid. So what we're going to do now is just kind of follow this line here that actually is on the potting mix, and we're going to go ahead and cut a square out. You don't want to get too far off into the sides because the weight of the soil will sort of open that up a little bit more. So we're just going to go ahead and pull that side of it off. We're done with our knife now. Now there tends to be a little bit more soil than what we need in here. So we're going to take and remove some of this potting soil. You can see how that side will want to expand down a little bit. So that's why you don't want to cut that plastic down too far. Now, there are some seeds that you want to use over other seeds. Obviously, because we don't have a lot of root space here, you probably don't want to use carrots. You might be able to get away with some of the shorter variety carrots. Radishes probably would work fine in here. But it's very ideal for lettuce. And all of these that we're talking about are cool season crops because it is October. You know, we're going into the cooler climate. But you can still get a good season of cool season crops. And lettuce will be ready to harvest. Radishes will be ready to harvest in just about 30 days. And so it won't take long to see those germinate and go ahead and get a nice little crop to harvest there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to use some butter crunch lettuce seeds that we have here. If you wanted to use multiple types of seeds, you could go ahead and make your rows and lay those out. But we're just going to sprinkle these seeds throughout here so that we can kind of just harvest when we see them starting to come up. And depending on whether you want to get microgreens or want to get a little more lettuce is going to depend on when you want to harvest them. Because these seeds are fairly small, we really don't need to bury them, but I am just going to kind of use my hand to tap those in and make sure that they have good soil contact. The other thing is I didn't necessarily pre-wet this bag, but it is somewhat moist potting soil already. The seed is fairly small, so we are going to go ahead and water those in next, just to, again, ensure that contact with the soil and to go ahead and start that process of wetting the seed and initiating germination. So while almost any container will work for this situation, you do want to make sure that it is a clear container. The lid can be colored, of course, but you definitely want to use a clear container. And in fact, if you have a container that doesn't have a lid anymore, you're missing it, then that container will work just fine. You don't necessarily need this tray underneath it. The reason why we need a clear container is so that we can now put this on top of our garden bed here that we've created. And it's going to create a small greenhouse effect. As we go into some of those cooler temperatures where it can get down to 40 at night, these cool season crops are going to do just fine. But having that moisture that's trapped in here will create condensation and will help encourage those plants to grow. So watering it initially is important, but as you go on and the plant continues to grow more and more, and depending on the temperatures, you're still going to check it daily for water like you would any other garden. If you're seeing condensation, that's a good sign, but you still want to check the soil, the potting soil, and actually make sure that it is moist and that there is moisture for those plants. You can see over here we have another one that we've done, and you can see that condensation that's being trapped in here. So again, it's just going to allow you a little more flexibility where this won't dry out every day. It'll keep that moisture in there. It'll keep it warm through some of those really chilly nights and allow those to germinate. The other thing here is you'll notice I have a stick. And again, depending on the temperature, we might just put it in here to allow a little bit of a vent, or we can even use this stick to go ahead and prop it up all the way and allow more airflow so that these don't get too hot. We were up into the 90s just yesterday, and so this can actually really increase that temperature pretty dramatically. So you might just keep an eye on that until we get into more of those fall-like temperatures. The other thing about this tray, the reason why we did put it under there, is if you ever need to move this. You might find that you're doing it in the shade and it needs a little more sun. You can go ahead and kind of drag this around somewhere versus having to hold a bag of soil that's cut open on one side. This will allow you to kind of move that a little bit better. So this is just a fun project that I just thought I would share with you guys. If you're not a gardener at all, this is a great way to just get started. I know a lot of people have their kids at home, and this might be a fun science project that you could tie into nutrition. And so it's not too late to incorporate a little gardening into your lives.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. You can also find even more videos on our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.